Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Ruth Ezell of the 9 Network. After many months of planning and construction, the owners of a project, I won't call it one of a kind because we know there's at least one other in the area, but it's in Old North St. Louis, and now you're calling this place home. Gina and Travis Sheridan just recently moved into their house, which is made out of 9 steel shipping containers and located in the Old North neighborhood. For those of you who don't know where that is, that's like around Crown Candy, right?
175 steps from Crown Candy. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming in. First, congratulations.
Thank you so
on
much.
the new
Thanks
home.
for having us.
And I'm wondering, my first experience with shipping containers as architecture was when the High Point Diner first opened up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, and I thought it was so cool, and so I'm saying, what is this material? And I had to ask, and he said shipping containers. And I thought, this will make a pretty cool house. And voila,
Here we go.
now have one in St. Louis. So where did the idea for this come from in the first place? How did you get inspired?
Well, we've lived in Old North for about 7 years, and there's a lot right across the street from where we used to live that has a beautiful view of the Gateway Arch. And so we knew we always wanted to build something on that lot, build a house on that lot, because we love looking at and just admiring our beautiful public art that is the Gateway Arch. And I got a chance to meet Zach Smithy, who is the St. Louis and St. Charles artist who also built a container house out in the St. Charles area, and said, why don't we go out and take a look at his? Let's see if it is something we could live in. Does it feel like we're living in the back of a semi-truck, or does it feel like we're living in a home? And it really became a concept to take a material that's not really used that often and see if we could repurpose it into a home, and it worked.
It certainly did. Now, I saw some video over the weekend. I guess one of the television stations came over. You had an open house. I would have been there had I known. Sorry about that. So what was the reaction of the people that came to the open house?
Yeah, so every year, Old North St. Louis Restoration Group holds a home and community tour, and our home was on the tour only 2 weeks after we moved in. So we had about 357 people through our home, and people's reactions were so positive and encouraging and supportive. They were wowed by the architecture. We also had our contractor and Zach Smithy in the house, so they could answer a lot of questions that we couldn't. And it was a really positive experience. It was wonderful meeting all those people.
And I also want to thank you for letting one of our photographers come in. Shout out to David Kovaluk. He came in, he took some pictures. Those will be posted on our website later this afternoon. In the meantime, can you guys kind of paint an audio picture for us of what we would see when we come inside?
Well, if anybody's ever explored any of the lofts in downtown St. Louis, they're probably familiar with what an open floor plan looks like and feels like. The ceilings are higher than normally expected when you walk into a house. They're 9.5-foot ceilings. Each floor is open. It's colorful because it is filled with art. And what I think people will experience the most is when they get up to the second and the third floor and they see a floating bed and a wonderful 8-foot by 8-foot shower that has just placed to really just start your morning. And then up on the third floor is where we've created our gallery space. We're sitting in Grand Center right now. We've always been inspired by the institutions in St. Louis, specifically the Pulitzer Foundation in that building. And when I first went in there, when we visited, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to live in an art gallery? And so if the listeners can picture what it might look like to have a house inside an art gallery, that's really what we've created.
But also know that it looks like a normal house on the inside.
Right,
Some
yes.
people think we're just inside and steel walls, but it's drywalled, insulated, nice energy efficient windows and things like that. So it does look like a normal open house on the inside.
And for anyone with questions about this wonderful house, I did see a picture of the exterior, and it is. I mean, there's brick, right?
There is no brick.
There's no brick. What
Not a
was it that I
single.
saw?
Well, Zach Smithy's house has brick in St. Charles.
That's it.
But
And
there is no brick on our house. We have
Okay.
one brick that's a piece of art that we because we do admire St. Louis bricks. What's really curious is the house we moved out of was built in 1899, and the house that we just moved into was built in 2019. There's a 120-year gap between these two houses, and we would like to think that this new house will be around for 100 or 200 years also.
All right. Please, listeners, if you have any questions, any comment for the Sheridans, give us a call, 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or send us a tweet at STL On Air, or email us at stlpublicradio.org. Now, you do, again, as we said, you're in Old North St. Louis, and you explain why you were here to build there.
Mm-hmm.
So, making a commitment like that, isn't that a little financially risky?
Some people would say that, yes. I think that the cost of steel went up since we got the original estimate for the project, so that was a little bit of a surprise. We chose this design because it would keep costs low. We didn't want to jack up prices too much in North City, in our neighborhood. Some people would say that.
But, the neighborhoods aren't going to improve unless people make investments in those neighborhoods. And we've seen throughout time so many people in Old North working to make investments either in their own home or in their businesses, and we are just following suit. We are following in a long line of people that have chosen to be in Old North and make investments in Old North.
Mm-hmm. All right. So there's a process for going through this, one of which is the zoning department. How did they react to all this?
The city was actually very, very supportive of the whole project. That was almost the easiest part. The most challenging part, I think, was finding a lender who would, take a chance on a new material. We went through applying for 6 different banks before we found Enterprise Bank and Trust, and so it was a challenge. And we were, lucky enough that we had a nice place to live in the meantime, and had some time, and were patient. And whenever anyone told us no, we didn't give up.
And the city, I joke around and say, if I had a whole list of people that made this process difficult, the city is not on the list at all. And everybody is asked, how did the city respond? They were great. The entire administration was very supportive. The inspectors that came out, looked at everything. I think a lot of that is both the willingness of the city to explore projects like this, and then a lot has to do with our general contractor, Joe Bandelos, who made sure that the work he was doing was going to pass inspection.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you didn't get any problems from the city. What about entities like insurance companies?
We've had a nice insurance provider for a very long time, and so he, is totally able to work with us, Shelter Insurance. And I think, one of the challenges in living in North City and trying to get home improvements or, a fence up in your yard is that, some businesses say that they serve the entire metro area, but when you call, they say, oh, we don't serve that zip code. And, it makes us pause and wonder, why could that be? And so we're really working, a lot of our neighbors are working on this spreadsheet where we have businesses that tell us yes, and we use regularly and spread the word about them. And there's also a tab for businesses that tell us no. And we are going to publish that on the Old North website and share that with our neighbors widely.
How about the bankers?
So like Gina mentioned, we were running into problems with financing. There's 2 things that were stacked against us, no pun intended, since we stacked containers. There's 2 things that were stacked against us. One, the neighborhood itself. There aren't a lot of comparable sales out there, or comps as they're called, and so they weren't able to identify something else that shared the same risk profile. Secondly, the material is new. I remember talking to some bankers and saying, asking what happened when we went from sticks to bricks like that. So whoever built the first house out of brick must have had a heck of a time getting financing because somebody said, you're using clay squares. That's not going to work. Use sticks or logs instead. This is a new material. Just recently at the national level, steel containers have been recognized as viable and normal building materials. That doesn't necessarily translate it all the way down at the local level yet, and it hasn't translated into the financial industry. And so, like Gina said, we had 6 banks say no before a 7th bank said yes. And every time a bank said no, and this goes to some of the persistence that we had, we would just look at them or respond and say, we get it. You're not cool. That's fine. We're going to find the cool bank. The cool bank will do this.
Let's go to the phones now. David is calling from Florissant with a question. Good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon. I'm curious why use a shipping container as a construction material for a home. I'm wondering what the advantages are of doing that. Are you saving a good amount of money, or because the construction techniques are quite a bit different than using lumber and bricks?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why we did. That. First of all, these containers that we used were out at the end of their useful life, which meant they were headed to the scrapyard. We have now taken those and removed them from ending up in a scrapyard, and they get to be a house for 100 or 150 years. So it's a way to repurpose materials and give them a second life. The second issue has to do with the creativity of it. We liked the rigidity of a container, both literally and figuratively. We wanted to see what we could do with that those sort of constraints. And then the last thing that I'll add is it was about 80% less expensive to build a house of this size using shipping containers than it was to build with traditional stick built. And the inside, where Gina mentioned that there's drywall, it is, wood studs are on the inside. We just knew that the exterior and the structure of the material, the structure of the house was going to be out of containers.
And I'll say also that we are a non-traditional couple, and we didn't want, something that looks like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're talking with Travis and Gina Sheridan, the owners and inhabitants of St. Louis's first home built from shipping containers. May I ask, what was the final price tag on this?
Well, we differ on what we say publicly and what we know in our hearts, but I'll tell you. But it was about $320,000 for a house that is 3,000 square feet. So it was just over $100 a square foot, which is really a deal when you think about a custom-built house where we got to pick what happened in every corner and every square foot of it.
So now let's get back to that St. Charles County house because we mentioned it briefly because I misidentified it. Sorry about that. So it's owned by Zach and Bree Smithy. Did you talk with them first? Did you get any advice before you started on this? Because they had their house up first.
Yeah, they've consulted. Zach has been a consultant on this project the entire time. In fact, I sent him my original drawings, and he said, "Okay, but here's how it can really work." Because he built his house himself. He built it by hand, so he was intimately involved in the construction process. He's the one that helped us find Joe Bandelos, our general contractor, and Gina and I had a chance to go out and visit the house too.
Yeah, and it was actually featured on a Netflix show.
Amazing interiors. Amazing interiors on Netflix.
Episode 3. Travis makes an appearance. It's really cute. But yeah, we got to see their house. We became friends with them. They, helped with the design and floor plan inside. And so they've really been invaluable.
Okay. We had a call from Brad in Overland. He was asking about how do you deal with rust prevention?
So the metal has all been treated. The paint that's on it is special paint to help prevent rust long term. These containers have gone across the oceans, back and forth, probably from Asia and Europe. So the construction team helped reclaim them, take off any rust that looked like it could have been deteriorating, and put the paint on for longer term. They will need maintenance over the years, just like a brick house will need tuck pointing. This will need power washing and repairs. Probably not as frequently as a brick house would need tuck pointing, but the material will last quite a while.
How about as far as energy efficiency? Was that a big factor in how you put everything together?
Yeah, we came from a lovely but drafty 1899 home, and I was always cold, and and the energy costs were high, and so that was really important to us to get some energy efficiency in their windows and HVAC and things like that. So yeah.
And the house, we didn't have the budget to put solar in initially, but the house is prepped and ready for solar. The roof is flat with a perfect southwestern exposure. So when we do have some additional resources, we're only lacking time and money at this point, but when we have some additional resources, we are looking to put solar in the building as well.
Is this the kind of home where you could add on?
Probably not.
Probably not. Even though a lot of our neighbors refer to it as a Minecraft house, it's pretty much set it and forget it. Like, there's not a lot that we will do to it.
You could probably add a garage, but we're so used to street parking. We have a little carport in the back. We're fine as it is.
Okay. I believe we have another caller from St. Louis. Philip is on the line. Hello, Philip.
Morning. Good morning to you and your guests. I wanted to ask them, is this a solution that possibly for the problem in St. Louis and other areas of the country where they continue to talk about the lack of affordable housing? I was wondering, could they possibly people get a shipping container and sort of modify it to live in it, and it would be quick and ready-made and sturdy and durable, and possibly serve as at least as a temporary affordable housing until somebody could, save up their money and get something better, but it would still be something in the meantime. Could your guests respond to that? And thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I think container houses are great for especially urban infill. We have a lot of vacant land in St. Louis. Our house, I gave the price tag of 320,000 square feet, but it is also $320,000 and 3,000 square feet. So a much smaller one could be built for a much less, sticker price. There are a lot of great designs you can do with 2, 3, and 4 containers, not necessarily 9 containers, that can fit on city lots. It is a great. The other thing is that they're replicable, right? If you have a model or a floor plan that is good for 2 containers, you can do that repeatedly in a neighborhood. And I do know that our general contractor and Zach Smithy are already talking to people about several projects in St. Louis area.
All right. Now, art plays a very big role in your house. So what was the process for incorporating that into your design?
So I am not an artist. Travis dabbles in creating art, but I love to curate. I love to support artists, whether when I'm traveling or local artists in St. Louis or where we're from in California. And really putting together the pieces on the wall or on the shelf, it just brings me such joy. And there were some pieces we're kind of in a situation where we have too much art, and so having this blank slate to work from was really nice. We put up some pieces like the firecracker press, the solar system prints. It's a giant 15-piece work. It's going to be on the website, but we hadn't displayed that yet. And so to have that up in our living room and to see it every day, it's just wonderful.
And I think some people, when they have a house, they take their art and make it fit the house. We had the luxury of having our art first and then building a house that we knew would fit the art.
Yeah, that is quite a luxury. I mentioned the High Point Diner, and I've also seen shipping containers being used for hydroponic gardens. Mm-hmm. So what are the chances that we could see like Sheridan Farms right next door to Casa Sheridan?
Probably pretty slim. We are not good at growing things.
Yeah.
But there could be Old North Farms that somebody else could put right next to Casa Sheridan, and we would really appreciate that. In fact, there's a wonderful public garden, shared garden, and farmers market that happens in Old North, and it would be great for somebody to find other reasons to put shipping containers in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. And there's also many of your listeners might know Rockwell Brewery, brewing company on Vandeventer is made of shipping containers. It's a wonderful place with delicious beer and food.
Yeah, so more people are using this as a medium and as a material, and we're really excited. Again, we weren't the first. Even Zach Smithy wasn't the first. This has been done a lot of other places around the country and around the world. It has been nice to get some attention, not just for the house, but especially for Old North St. Louis and the north side of St. Louis that doesn't always get the same type of attention as the rest of the region.
Yeah, I suspect you provided some inspiration to a few people. Are you willing to give advice to folks?
Absolutely. We're always willing to give advice. We're willing to, share floor plans with people. We want this to be easier for the next person. And I think that's the thing. Maybe it's because of my background working with startups or Gina's background as a librarian, helping people continue to get access to information about things. This was a challenge for us. We want it to be incrementally or significantly less of a challenge for the next person, and to set that trend so that the third, fourth, and fifth becomes easier and easier for people.
Well, Gina and Travis Sheridan, thanks so much for joining us today. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.